someone that you see that and you just think that it's something that can be brushed off, or that somebody on your political side of the aisle can say, nah, it's not a big deal, and you take that to heart and you say, you're right, it's not a big deal, and you really only choose to care about a few select cases of violence, ones that really push a narrative and give you reason to hate the other side, you suck. Hello, welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for the support. On my channel, I like to give my opinion and perspective on things that are happening today, things that I think actually matter to everyday people, especially those of us that are trying to raise children in the insanity known as today's society. We are not CEOs of big corporations, we are not part of the mainstream media, and we do not live in the Hollywood bubble. We are also not politicians in Washington, D.C., but we do have to live with the consequences of the decisions being made and the narrative being pushed by the people in the previously mentioned categories. If you feel like that describes you, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Please like this video, leave a comment below, and also share it. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel. All of these things help me to grow my channel and hopefully to reach more people who value logic, reason, and sanity. Also, be sure to find me on Rumble under Outspoken Samantha in the event that we lose our connection here on YouTube and we have to, take our discussions and our free speech somewhere else. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So if you are here with me on my channel, you are one of the people that actually knows about all of the skyrocketing crime that is happening across the country in all of our major cities. And if you're someone who doesn't know about it, I'm going to have to say that I really think you have to be going out of your way to pretend that it's not happening, to ignore it, to, shut down anything that wants to show you what's happening so that you can live comfortably in your little bubble and just pretend that this chaos is not happening in these cities. And if you are paying attention and you are seeing what's happening, if you're anything like me, and I have pretty thick skin, but when you see these things happening, you can't help but just feel your heart just drop into your stomach, and you can't help but your stomach just turns. And congratulations, that's because it makes you a human being, that you don't want to see people suffer, that, suffering is not a political statement to you. It's not something that you agree with in some cases and you disagree with in others, depending on who is telling you what to think and how to feel. That any cases of violence, regardless of what that person's political beliefs are, it really just hits you in the heart and you feel compassion for that person. But if you're someone that, you see that and you just think that it's something that can be brushed off, or that somebody on your political side of the aisle can say, nah, it's not a big deal, and you take that to heart and you say, you're right, it's not a big deal. And you really only choose to care about a few select cases of violence, ones that, really push a narrative and give you reason to hate the other side, you suck. And I don't think you suck because it's a trending hashtag or a talking point, or because the media told me to think that way, or because Biden labeled you as someone who sucks simply because we disagree. You suck because you don't care about violence or the people that are suffering as a result of bail reform and pro-crime laws, and our politicians that are actively making decisions to allow violent criminals to run through our neighborhoods and wreak havoc on innocent people. Because if someone tells you to ignore it, or distracts you by saying that the other political party, the other side of the political aisle, is a bigger threat, you do it and you don't ask any questions. And innocent people suffer because people like you support the ones that are making them suffer. And you know how I know that? Let's just take a couple of these horrific incidents of violence that have happened just recently. This is just within the last few days, or things that just continue to happen because of these pro-crime policies, because there aren't any consequences, so these people aren't going to stop. People that want to commit crimes, if there's no deterrent, if there's no consequences for it, why would they stop? Why? Like, what's going to keep them from doing it? So I don't know if you had the extreme misfortune of seeing this video, but I think it's really important to watch. Elisabeth Gomez is a woman that lives in New York City. She was taking the subway just to work, and she was brutally beaten in the subway for absolutely no reason. When I first saw this video, I wasn't sure if there was like a connection between Elisabeth and the man that attacked her. I didn't know if they were in some kind of domestic dispute. Not that that excuses it, but I was trying to grasp why this was happening, and it makes it that much more horrific knowing that this was just random, that there was no connection there, that this man really just picked Elisabeth as this target and chose to brutally beat her to the point where she now could potentially suffer long-term permanent damage to her sight. So I really think that you need to see this video. I do want to say that it's very hard to watch if you don't think that you need to see it, but you get what I'm saying without actually watching the video. You can fast forward about 30-40 seconds, and then it will get you right past that. So here's that video. So as you can see, she's on the ground, she's getting, beaten up, and then she tries to get up, and the guy comes back and just continues to savagely beat her. And I think another guy came in to try to help, and then, the attacker, the assailant, went after him. So there really was no protection for this woman. But you want to know how the Party of Equality, the Party of Human Rights, and the Party of Love responded? Council member Tiffany, I want to say Caban, it's C-A-B-A-N. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but she is part of the council that oversees the 22nd District in Queens. She dismissed this violence and said, don't use it as fear-mongering, Just to quote her tweet, she said, "Subway violence is a 1 in a million event. As a believer in a violence-free New York, I still think that's one too many. But let's not let fear-mongering politicians and corporate media outlets scare us into thinking that we have a dangerous, scary public transit system." First of all, if you're paying any attention at all, you know that this is not a rare incident, and that bringing attention to these incidents is not fear-mongering. It's pointing out the fact that these places are not safe. I mean, it's not to say that there weren't assaults in the New York City subway system before. Of course there were. It wasn't to say that violence didn't exist before the last couple of years. It's the fact that these pro-crime policies are in place where assailants and violent criminals are getting a slap on the wrist and being released back out into society, and innocent people are suffering for it. And that has been happening more and more. And we've seen legislation about, look at the bill that is going to be passed in Illinois that takes effect on January 1st, and the list of things that will now be considered non-punishable offenses, and the number of criminals that are going to be released just because of that bill. It is called the Safety Act. Definitely recommend you look it up, but don't go to the mainstream media to read about it. Actually, find a reputable source to find out what's in that bill. But if you're paying attention, you know this is not a rare incident, and you also know that this is not going to stop. Despite this inhumane attempt by this councilwoman to minimize this woman's pain, attacks have risen by 43%. So she's not just dismissing Elisabeth, she's dismissing everyone who has been assaulted in New York City and in the transit system, which could have been prevented if these violent people were kept in jail and not running amok through the public, if they were behind bars where they belong. And what about these ladies? You have to see it to believe it, but it's absolutely egregious. These ladies, if you can call them that, a group that calls themselves the Green Goblin Gang, and they run around New York City in these green spandex onesies, and just beat up teenagers at random. Just beat them up. Here's that video. So if it wasn't for the fact that these women are just out there like beating up innocent people for no reason, and that is absolutely horrifying and egregious, and they are inhumane and depraved and vile, I would laugh because they look completely ridiculous. But these are the kind of things that are happening. People are just doing whatever the heck they want, and innocent people are suffering for it. And this is what happens when everything becomes political and we get caught up in labels versus reality, and talking points versus reality, and being opposed to each other versus what's really happening. People get hurt, policies get ignored, and violence gets ignored. On the right, when we say Democrats are pro-crime, we can back it up with their own written legislation, with their own voting record, and the fact that we can see the crime statistics going up. We don't say it because I want you to vote Republican. I'm saying it because it's happening, and it's hurting people, and it needs to stop. When the left says the right is lawless, you can't back it up. Like, show me the Republican legislation promoting cashless bail, or the Republican voting to reduce sentences for crimes, or the Republican excusing violence against people as, oh, it hasn't happened enough to matter. And as far as, Elisabeth Gomez, the lady in the first video, where is BLM on that? If the man attacking her was a white cop, that story would be everywhere. If she were at a public school, a teacher in a public school being shot at, it would be all the media could talk about. But the violence against her and any other woman or any other innocent person does not matter if there's nothing in it to push a narrative that the media can use to get you to oppose the right. If they can't use it for anything, if it's not beneficial in any way, that this woman's suffering, or anybody else like her that is dealing with these horrific situations on a daily basis and scared to death even just to commute to work, it doesn't matter. None of it matters unless there's something to be gained from it, and that is to paint the political right as the problem. The left, they'll let women and children and Black people and Hispanic people, everyone that they like to use as a pawn, they'll let us all suffer violence and death all day, every day, and they'll push your brutalization and your attack and your assault off if it can't be used, as demonstrated by Councilwoman Tiffany Caban in her tweet. And I want to ask, where are the women's rights advocates on this, who repeat the baseless talking point that Republicans are the one that want women in America to be like women in Afghanistan? Where are y'all on this? Because you know who's suffering the most violence in this country because of these soft on crime policies? Women. Assault, trafficking, rape, beatings, all of it has risen by double digits. But all of you women who claim to be pro women's rights, you only care if one of those assaults results in that woman getting pregnant and making sure that she has the right to kill the baby in her womb. Otherwise, she can be beaten, she can be raped, targeted all day, every day, like the women in Afghanistan are, while the men who target women get a slap on the wrist. And you don't care. You don't care. What about a woman's right to feel safe, to have justice for their abuse, to be able to protect themselves? Those are the rights that are in danger for women right now. And you don't care. You're programmed. You've been programmed to respond a certain way, to hate the right no matter what, and to ignore what evidence shows you, what endless footage there is that women are being targeted and attacked and assaulted, and having this right to feel safe in their own community, in their own city, just walking down the sidewalk or trying to get to work and trying to live their lives. They no longer have the right to feel safe and to just, we can't just live our lives without constantly watching over our shoulder and knowing that if there is an attack that happens, if you're in the wrong area with policies that protect criminals and are letting people out of prison with a slap on the wrist, that you could be a prime target at any time. and the laws are in favor of the person that wants to attack you and target you. That is what women in Afghanistan go through. That is what women in Afghanistan deal with. And you are the reason that women are suffering in this country. You are the reason that women in America are now experiencing the life of Afghanistan women. Not to the point that Afghanistan women